Hello, everybody. Good evening, and welcome to a very special show. Now, if you were paying attention a little bit early, you may have noticed that we had a bit of an announcement with regards to the BCV8 Championship. Of course, we are going to be live streaming with the BCV8s this year, and I'm delighted to be joined by James Wheeler. James, how you doing, my friend? Are you well?
I'm good, Ian. Thank you. Yeah, really good. How are you? All right?
I'm not too bad, although you look like you're sat in a nice cosy village pub, although that's not quite true, is it? It's actually your house, is that right?
No,
Or the extension?
Yeah, I've kind of got bored during the off season. The car is ready, and I thought you can't go to the pub, so I'll build one. So I'm literally sat in my shed in the garden and built myself a little pub, which you can see behind us. Which yeah, I thought. Well, it's better than looking at a bed in the background in the spare room. So I thought I'll sit in the pub and have a chat with you all.
I'll tell you, I'm a jealous man. I'm sat in my conservatory right now, and I would much rather be sat in the pub. Although you don't have too long to go before we can get out into the pub garden, can we? Although we also don't have too long to go until we're racing, and we are, of course, delighted to say that you can watch the BCV8 Championship here with the BCV8s at the MGCC BCV8 Championship Facebook page with my supercar, of course, and our brand new channel as well, Live Sport Now. You can watch all of our live sport over at Live Sport Now on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. So do keep up to date with all that. Now, if you're fairly new to the BCV8 Championship or just love seeing them in action, we have a little video to play out, don't we, James, that we're going to show everybody now. It's a bit of a cracker. And if you're excited for 2021, here's what you're going to see. Oh, James, that's got to be the funnest video I've ever seen. That music as well. I could just, how can you not be in a good mood watching that? Absolutely brilliant. Now, look, let's talk about the BCV8 Championship in 2020. Of course, a lot of footage there from 2020. In fact, I did see myself in there a few times as well. So thank you for that. I'll take that as a good compliment. Look, 2021, we mentioned in there the calendar. So where are we going this year, James? I'm going to bring it up there for everybody to have a little look at as well.
First race of the season, not that far away now. Unfortunately, we were meant to be at Silverstone a few weeks ago. The COVID restrictions were obviously still in, so that one has been taken off the calendar. But yeah, Brands Hatch is very much looking like it's going ahead. It's still sounding like reasonably in sort of closed doors at the moment, but we're waiting for more news on that. But that's why it's going to be so good having you with us there, Ian, because everyone can still watch it. So yeah, we're really looking for that. I think last look we were 23 yesterday. I think it might be 24 cars on the grid so far. Yeah, still we always get a few people enter last minute normally as well. So expecting a nice big full grid of MGs racing around Brands Hatch Indy. So really looking forward to that.
It's a cracker, isn't it? In fact, I'm just looking at it now. Obviously, Brands Hatch Indy, a particular favourite of mine. I have to say, not only is it local, but it's a great track to film at as well because you can get up high. Alton Park, you're actually doing a couple of events. That's with the Bentley Drivers Club, isn't it, as well?
Yeah, so we're not just with MG Car Club. We are with them for all of their races this year, but we're also sort of venturing off as well. And we've got Silverstone National with Bentley Drivers Club, which we're really looking forward to. We've been chatting behind the scenes with the guys at Bentley there, and they sound like they put on a fantastic race. So yeah, really looking forward to that one. 750 Motor Club as well, always a fantastic club. Always enjoy racing with them. Rounding off our season at Mallory Park, and we haven't been as a championship to Mallory Park for, I can't remember the last time. I literally cannot remember. I know I was in B class, so that was 2012, maybe 2011, 2012,
Wow.
something like that. So yeah, long time since we've been to Mallory Park, so that's going to be really good fun to finish off the season. But at the moment, looking forward to Brands Hatch in a few weeks' time, and then straight up to Alton, and we might actually get Alton Park in the dry, looking at it being in May. I think it's always been late in the season. We tend to always get a wet race there, but it's yeah, it should be dry. Fingers crossed. We hope.
Last year was insane, wasn't it? We were of course with you there, and it ended up getting called early, didn't it? Because of the treacherous conditions.
They did so well to make that race go ahead. You know, the weather was very Alton Park weather, and the first race was actually awesome. I really enjoyed it for some reason or another. But yeah, no, it was a cracking race meet, and they did really well to get us all to sort of pretty much every championship there. I think got one race at least, and then it just got too waterlogged by the end, and they had to call it. But yeah, at least we got some kind of racing at the end of last season.
Well, let's talk about that first race. Actually, it was a bit of a shining light for you, wasn't it? Because certainly Donington Park and Snetterton for you. A few issues with the car meant, unfortunately, you didn't actually really get any racing in until Alton Park, did you, last year?
Yeah, so that was the thing. So, yeah, as well as helping run the championship and speak to you guys also racing it. And, yeah, unfortunately, my car didn't want to play ball for the first. Obviously, we only had three races as it was anyway, 3 meetings because of COVID. And the first 2 meetings, my car did not want to play ball. It became the sort of 3-lap wonder. It was great for 3 laps, and then would boil over, which turned out we found out now was a crack in the block. So and a small crack too that wasn't really that noticeable. So once it got hot enough after 3 laps, it decided to lose all its water. But
you were very quick for those 3 laps, though. You were very quick.
Yeah,
for those 3 laps.
Going well. That's always go really well until I pulled over. But yeah, but the BCV8 being what it is, it's not just another racing championship in my eyes. I've been part of it since I was, well, my dad raced in it and still does since I was a kid. You know, when I was born, Dad was still racing in the BCV8 Championship back in the 80s. So it's been going for years. And the one thing, you sort of feel like you're with a family. If something goes wrong with a car, people are there. If someone's got spares, they'll hand you spares. And in actual fact, a big thank you to Ian Pryor, who's always a bit of a laugh when you get him on your camera and in interviews. He kindly got fed up of seeing me on the sidelines and wanted to see his car right at the front. Not that he doesn't put it right at the front as well, but he had another car to race. He raced that and said I could drive his. And went out and Alton Park won it. Hence I enjoyed it, even though it was soaking wet.
We've had a question come in, actually. Mike Williams is watching. Hey, Mike, hope you're very, very well. He wants to know if he could come to your pub, James.
when it's allowed, when it's legal to come inside, more than welcome.
Absolutely. Look, I just want to bring up the calendar again just very quickly, because I did notice on there the 12th and 13th of June we're off to Silverstone. It's the Grand Prix circuit as well. What are these V8s like to drive around Silverstone? Can you? Is it really quite satisfying to put your foot down on those big straights at Silverstone?
We're extremely lucky to get that Silverstone Grand Prix race. You know, there's not many times that's open to club racers. So to get on that Silverstone Grand Prix circuit is really something else. And yeah, in all the cars, I mean, we got all sorts of classes ranging from the 4-cylinder, sort of pretty much standard MGB, right up to a fully modified V8. And they round that circuit is something else. And to think that you're driving around a track that, you know, Formula One will be around this year also kind of adds something to it, definitely.
Absolutely. Right, we need to cover. I want to talk about classes with you. Anybody's watching this who's got a car that's eligible to race and thinking of getting involved, or for people who are going to tune in this year and watch the BCV8s. And I really encourage you to do it because it's quite something special. In fact, I'm just going to bring in a little picture. Look at this, by the way. These are the cars that you're going to see in action in 2021. And just look at them. That is absolutely beautiful. That was taken, I think, by myself, actually, at the assembly area at Snetterton last year. But there's a number of classes, isn't there, involved with the BCV8 Championship, James, isn't there? Let's talk about, first of all, let's talk about this man. This is Ollie Neves, the overall champion in 2020 and Class D champion as well, wasn't he? So what can race in Class D?
Well, that is a cracking picture, by the way, isn't it? That's a fantastic picture.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So these are our big monsters, you could call them. That they are Class D runs at the front of the championship, and it is sort of the fastest cars that you got, and that also comes with that the highest budget too. But wow, I don't know anything else that you can drive, and I've driven a few things over my time, and I don't know anything else you can drive that is quite as amazing as that. It's a fully modified V8, in it has to be a Rover V8, 3.9. You can overboard them 80 plus 80, so they sort of become about 4.1. And the block casting, all of that of the Rover V8 has to stay standard. But anything else, you can do what you want as long as it stays normally aspirated, and no sort of mapping, and it's got to be normal ignition, things like that have got to be the same. But all of the internals of the engine can be all balanced, steel bottom ends, fully worked on heads, and they're producing just on about 400 brake horsepower and only weigh 900 kilos. So even with my big lump in there, they really shift, they really go. So yeah, nothing else that I've driven that competes to it. And when I say that a higher budget of our championship, compared to some other cars that I've seen out there, the levels are still not crazy compared to, considering the lap time you can pull out of them.
So you could, technically, I was going to bring that picture back up again, you could, within the rules, stick a massive, great rear spoiler on that. Not that you would want to, but I'm just saying you could. Don't do it. Anybody watching, please don't do it.
No. The rules are we want to try and keep them all looking like MGBs. That's the main thing. We do. The BCV8 did used to, and still does actually. That's one misconception now. It used to allow the sort of Sebring arches on the cars. And that was taken out to sort of bring the wheels and everything in a little bit a few years ago now. But actually, we've got an invitation class. If it's an MGB, an MGC, or an MGB V8, it can come out with us in the invitation class, even though it doesn't quite fit the rules as they are. But yeah, no, we want them all looking like MGB still. So massive, it looks
Good.
like you've driven through Halford's kind of spoiler. Can't go on there.
That's what I like to hear. Now let's move on to, we've got Class C, haven't we, as well? Jim Bryan there. Apologies, the picture is a little bit fuzzy there, but that's Jim Bryan. That's Class C, isn't it? Is that right in saying what's eligible for Class C?
Yeah, so Class C is definitely becoming one of our most popular classes this year, especially looking at the registration we got so far. I think the reason why is well, first of all, C class is eligible for MGB GT V8s and MGC fully modified. So just to quickly run past the name, if people are suddenly thinking, what is BCV8? It literally is that. We cater for MGBs, MGCs, and MGB V8s. That's the championship. So Class C is very much your fully modified MGCs, which are fantastic. Andy Young comes out, races with us. It's a monster under that engine bay. It looks amazing. You must get a video of that this year if you get a chance.
Oh, we will.
And in that class as well, which is the car that's really becoming quite popular, is it's a pretty much standard MGB GT shell. You don't have to do really any modifications to them. They run on a reasonably standard setup suspension wise. You are allowed to put sort of gas shocks or something like that on them, but not you're not allowed coilovers, things like that. So it's a reasonably standard suspension, and you can go out and get a Rover V8 engine again, a 3.9, and stick it in there, and you're not allowed to modify them. So that's where the costs stay quite low. They've got to be a bog standard bottom end 3.9 V8. Heads aren't allowed to be worked on. They can run a Holly carburettor and an RV8 manifold, and that's it. So actually, if you've already got a GT sitting in your garage, you stick a roll cage in it, stick a race seat in it. If you want to go a bit faster than sort of a standard car, put a V8 in it, and for relatively low costs, if you add that up and look at the price of a V8 on eBay, they're not really not that much money to be going extremely fast around a racetrack. So I think that's why it's proven the most popular. It's also one of the more reliable classes. Something like our D class, like you've heard, I've had a few breakdowns. You're pushing the engines to the limit, so reliability, although is got a lot better, and as they've been developing them over the years, we sort of worked out how to get them pretty strong. They do go a little bit wrong occasionally, whereas the C class, it's pretty much turn up, go racing, put it on the trailer and take it to the next event. So I think that's why it's proving the most popular at the moment. And it's good to see it grow. We've got a couple of new cars coming out with us this year, which will be good to see.
That's what I like to hear. And actually, I've got a quick question about Class D again. Now, we saw something quite crazy, I think, at Snetterton last year, didn't we? This is actually, we spoke about it already. This is Ian Pryor's car. What was the bulge? We spoke about it at the time, but for anybody watching in this, these cars did actually go racing. Now, what is that? It hasn't been in a fight, has it? It's not just a lump on its bonnet. That was there for a reason, wasn't it? Would you care to explain why?
That was there because I think Ian wasn't running for the championship. Let's put it that way. So he wasn't trying to score points, and that point about us sort of wanting the cars to look a little bit MG-fied, I think he wanted to go, let's not go this big with the bulges, because it was starting to become a who's got the biggest bulge competition. And I'm talking about bonnets here. So that,
you know what? I've never won one of those. I've never won one of those.
So it's sort of decided now we've got a sort of a pattern that we're all following, so we shouldn't end up with huge bulges like that anymore. But it did look. I suppose it looked quite cool, but from that angle, it maybe not.
It was a good talking point, wasn't it? It certainly was. But obviously, I think that highlights again a bit of a difference between classes. Now let's move on to Class B. We have Mark Scott. He was the champion. There we go in 2020. Talk us through Class B, James.
Yeah, so Class B is quite close to my heart, because I before going up to Class C and D, and I sort of raced both classes because me and Dad share the cars. I did Class B for most of my BCV8. Like, if I put all the years I've raced in BCV8, B class is the one I've raced the most in, and it's a cracking little class. It really, well, I shouldn't say little class, actually. It's not. I
was going to say they're still monsters, aren't they?
When those cars are going strong, they can win races in the wet. Often the B class can be right at the front, and if not win, because they're extremely light. They're only just over 800 kilos, and we have three marks of MGB, essentially. Not maybe MGB, but you have 3 marks of MG that can race in there. You've got the MGB 4-cylinder car, which can run a bit like the D class, a fully modified engine, as in it can run, as long as it stays the original casting of an MGB, goes no bigger than 1950. You can pretty much do what else you want component-wise to the engine. Right. So they're producing sort of 190, 200 brake horsepower out of a car that's only 800 kilos. And they just turn on a sixpence. So you've got those cars in B class, which are fantastic to watch, great fun to drive. I personally love driving them. It then has the standard V8 is allowed in there. So we've got another V8 in that class. And the standard V8, it works quite well, that class, because the standard V8, a little bit quicker down the straight than the little 4-cylinders, but not quite as quick around the corners. So you actually get a nice dynamic between the two types of car. So that's great fun. And then again, the MGC, it's got to be a standard-ish MGC. They're allowed to do a little bit to them, but not much. And again, that's allowed in the B class as well. So an MGB, MGB GTV8 and the MGC in B class. And as I say, very close. I tell you, when you get a real competitive race at the front of B class, you literally can get a fag paper between the cars, and you can drive them that close because they're so controllable. They're so I can't describe the feeling, but they are great. They are great cars to drive.
So you just say there, literally, there is almost as close a standard as pretty much can be. How easy is it to go race? I mean, is it literally if somebody's got one of these and say it's been in the garage for a while and don't really take it out very often and was maybe thinking about selling it or something, but this could be a perfectly viable opportunity to go racing in it. You know, and let's say you've got a standard model. What do you actually have to do with it? Do you have to change tyres, I assume, and bits and make it safety? You have to run a fire extinguisher and stuff.
Yeah, so that's where we might come on to it. So, but that's where our AB class comes in.
Well, let's come on to AB class actually. Then,
yeah.
as you mentioned, here's Ross McAngus. Of course, he was the winner in 2020. There's a picture of his car there. Let's talk about AB then.
Yeah, so AB class, again, it can have three types of spec of car in it as such. It can have a very much standard, like Russell's there, very much standard MGB with a 4-cylinder engine in it. A very much standard MGC can also race in that class, an extremely standard MGC, and which they're very quick, as we've said. You've got to have a look at the engine of one, and also the FIA MGB can race in there. So we've got a class where FIA MGBs can race. So they've got to be a pre-65 car. They don't have to have papers on them, but they have to be as if they could have FIA papers on them, and they're also eligible for that car. But the Russell McAngus style car, where he won there, literally, if you've got an MGB in your garage, you just need to get a roll cage for it, a race seat for it, basically the normal MSUK safety equipment. So it's a fire extinguisher, roll cage, seat, harness, that sort of thing, which you have to do no matter what car you race, if you're racing in the UK, around the MS UK circuits. And the engines can be worked on a tiny bit, because we used to have a completely bog standard class for MGBs, but unfortunately, I don't think there's any out there now. Everyone that's got an MGB has done some kind of work to it. So there's really not that many completely standard ones. And it was actually costing more people more money to actually make an MGB perfectly standard than it was to have them a tiny bit modified. So yeah, they're allowed a little bit of work, which is all in the regulations. But for I don't want to put a price on it, because some people, but if you were building that yourself and wanted to get a car out there, and you know, let's say you haven't got the car, you can pick up an MGB GT for 3-4 grand, a Roadster for 5-6 grand. Your safety gear is probably about 1,000, and then 1,000 or so on just sort of blueprinting the engine and the bits and bobs you can do to that. So for less than £10,000, so if you've already got the car, you've saved yourself 5 of that. Yeah. For less than that, you're on track. And then the nice thing, and the reason why I think BCV8's been going since 1977, is that you can either stay in that class and be as competitive as you like in that class, and everyone is. You know, no matter whether you stay in that class and do that for 20, 30 years, you can have a great race. Or if you want to go a bit faster, you can then modify your car and go up to sort of the B class. And then if you fancy a bit of V8 power, you can go up to the C or D class, you know, and if you've got an MGC, same thing, you can modify it up all the way to the fully modified in C class. So it's got all the options for all the budgets, and each class provides great racing. So I sound like I'm proper promoting it, but that's what I'm here for. I'm trying to tell everyone how great it is.
Well, we're here to give information, and that's great. And of course, there is more information, obviously, at the BCV8 website. As you're running across the bottom, it is www.bcv8.com. Do go check it out, or do drop us a message wherever you're watching this, and myself and James will go back through the messages. And if anybody wants to find out a little bit more, has a question, we'll get straight back to you. But the website is obviously a good place to go as well, isn't it, James? And the Facebook pages. Yeah, also. Look, what a year we've got ahead of us. Let me just bring up that calendar again one last time for everybody to have a little look at, if I could find it. There it is. There we go. Look, there's the calendar there. So 24th of April, under a month now, James. We're off to Brands Hatch on the Indy circuit. 22nd of May, we're going to Alton Park. 12th and 13th of June, Silverstone Grand Prix circuit. How cool was that? 17th of July, we're off to Donington Park. Then the 7th of August, back to Silverstone on the national circuit. Then the 11th, 12th of September, heading to Snetterton, the 300. So it includes the midsection, a great place, Agostini, great place to go watch the action there if you're heading up to Snetterton. And round out the season at the 10th of October at Mallory Park. Look, James, I can't wait to get into this. I'm so excited. I'm having withdrawal symptoms. I'm just desperate to get back out trackside. I can't wait to see you there. I can't wait to see all the cars there as well. I can't wait to commentate on it. I can't wait to go chat to all the drivers again. And a big thank you, actually, to the everybody involved at the BCV8, because every time we turn up with a camera, everybody talks to us. Everybody's great value. Everybody offers us a cup of tea. It really does. You guys really do treat us like a family. So thank you very, very much. I do implore everybody to tune in this year. James, I suppose you better get back to pouring a few pints, haven't you? Really?
No, I'll tell you, it's midweek, isn't it? So I'm trying my best. Even though I've got a pub in the garden, trying my best to stay off it for during the week at least, because the lockdown pounds have gone on, and I've got to start thinking about
join the club,
thinking about racing, and I could lose. I've tried to get weight off the car for this year, but put weight on myself, so I think it's just kind of equaled it out. But so I won't be having a pint tonight, but I will be on Friday. Trust me.
It's a Tuesday. You can drink on a Tuesday.
Oh yeah. Oh, you twisted my arm. You twisted my arm. Ian, I also like to say it's brilliant having you guys come along. We really like it. The feedback we've had from our drivers of having you there with us, and because of the lockdowns and because of COVID's restricting people there too, it's meant that people can watch the racing, feel like they're there as well. And to be honest, it's going to work both ways. It works really well like that, but also once we've got some crowds there and some people watching too, that's going to add to the atmosphere as well. So, thank you very much for supporting us again this year, Ian. It's brilliant.
It's absolutely believe me, the thanks is all from me, because it's a real treat, and not just blowing smoke up your behind. It really, really is. Right, cool. Everybody, thanks for tuning in. I think we're going to have to play out with that video one more time, aren't we? If you're interested in the BCV8 Championship in 2021, just watch this. This is what's coming up. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you at Brands Hatch next month. Enjoy this.
Cheers, Ian. Cheers.